The rain came down in sheets that night, hammering the corrugated roof of Hangar 7 like artillery fire. Nobody had been stationed there in 8 months. The base commander had signed the decommissioning papers himself, reassigning the skeleton crew to active sectors 3 miles north. The hangar sat at the edge of Kandahar's forgotten perimeter, where the desert met rust and memories. Yet when Staff Sergeant Nikolai Voss rolled past on perimeter patrol at 3:47 hours, he saw light bleeding through the gap beneath the massive doors. Not the orange flicker of squatters or the white glare of looters. A steady, purposeful work light. He radioed it in, expecting scavengers. What he got instead was silence on the other end, then a terse response. Stand down. Authorized presence. Authorized by whom? The question gnawed at him as he watched a shadow move across the illuminated gap, measured and deliberate. Then he heard it, the distinct whump-whump-whump of rotor blades cutting through rain-thick air. A Blackhawk, running dark, descended through the storm like a ghost. No running lights, no transponder beacon. It touched down on the tarmac outside Hangar 7 with the precision of a surgeon's hand, and Voss felt his stomach tighten. Someone climbed out of the cockpit, moving through the downpour toward the hangar. The door cracked open just wide enough to let them slip inside, then closed again. Voss knew better than to investigate further. He'd been in long enough to recognize the shape of something classified. But curiosity is a powerful thing, and the next morning he asked around. Who the hell is in 7? The motor pool sergeant just shook his head. The supply officer claimed ignorance. It wasn't until he cornered Master Sergeant Riadalka in the canteen that he got anything resembling an answer. She was 41, lean as a whip, with silver threading through her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many missions to count. "Leave it alone, Voss," she said, stirring her coffee without looking up. "That's Wraith," he blinked. "Wraith, that's a call sign. Was long time ago." Her tone carried the weight of a closed chapter. "She's been dead for 3 years, officially." Voss felt the hairs on his neck stand up. "Then who?" "I said leave it." Rhea finally met his eyes, and what he saw there was something between respect and fear. Some ghosts earned the right to haunt their old hunting grounds. Lieutenant Kira Renaud had not asked for permission, because permission was a formality she no longer required. Officially, she had died in a helicopter crash over the Hindu Kush in April of 2021. The wreckage had been photographed. The memorial service had been attended by 200 people, including a brigadier general who spoke about sacrifice and honor. Her name was etched on a wall at Arlington. Yet here she stood, alone in Hangar 7, running her hand along the cold metal skin of an A-64 Apache that should have been scrapped years ago. The machine bore no markings, no tail number, no unit insignia, just naked aluminum and the faint smell of hydraulic fluid. She had spent the last 3 months pulling favors, calling in debts from people who owed her their lives, to get this bird operational again. The Army didn't know. Her former squadron didn't know. Only a handful of shadows in the intelligence community understood what she was preparing for, and they had their reasons for looking the other way. Kira pressed her forehead against the Apache's fuselage, feeling the cold seep through her skin. She closed her eyes and let herself remember. The mountains, the static-filled radio, the way her co-pilot, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, had looked at her in those final seconds before the explosion. The way his hand had reached for hers. She had survived. He had not. And the people responsible had walked away clean, protected by layers of bureaucracy and plausible deniability. Not anymore. She stepped back and picked up a wrench, moving to the engine cowling. Her hands were steady. They always were when it mattered. Outside, the rain continued its relentless drumming. Inside, Kira worked in silence, tightening bolts and checking fuel lines with the practiced efficiency of someone who had logged over 2,000 flight hours. The Apache was old, but it was hers now. And in 72 hours, she would take it into the air one last time. Master Sergeant Riadalka stood outside Hangar 7 the next evening, rain dripping from the brim of her cap. She did not knock. She simply waited, hands in her pockets, until the door opened and Kira Renaud appeared. They regarded each other for a long moment. Rhea had trained Kira a decade ago, back when the younger woman was still hungry to prove herself, still believed the system rewarded merit over politics. "You look like hell," Rhea said finally. "You look older," Kira replied without malice. Rhea smiled just a little. 3 years is a long time to be dead. Not long enough. Kira stepped aside, allowing Rhea to enter. The older woman's eyes swept the hangar, taking in the Apache, the scattered tools, the cot in the corner where Kira had clearly been sleeping. "You planning to tell me what this is about?" Rhea asked. "No, didn't think so." Rhea crossed her arms. "But you're going to anyway, because if you die for real this time, someone needs to know why." Kira was silent for a long time. Then she walked to a metal footlocker, opened it, and pulled out a folder. She handed it to Rhea. Inside were photographs, intelligence reports, satellite images, names, dates, coordinates. Rhea's expression darkened as she read. "Jesus Christ, Kira." "They covered it up," Kira said quietly. "The crash wasn't mechanical failure, it was a targeted strike. Marcus and I stumbled onto something we weren't supposed to see, a weapons cache, a deal between people who should have been enemies. They shot us down to keep us quiet, then blamed it on engine failure. And the investigation, classified, sealed, disappeared." Kira's voice was flat, emotionless. "I spent a year in a hospital bed in Germany under a fake name, another year tracking down the truth. Now I'm done waiting for justice." Rhea closed the folder carefully. "This is suicide." "Maybe." "Definitely." Rhea looked at her former student, seeing the ghosts behind her eyes. "You know I can't let you do this alone." They worked through the night, the two women moving around each other with the unspoken synchronization of soldiers who had shared too many missions to count. Rhea's presence changed everything. She brought supplies Kira hadn't been able to acquire, encrypted radios, updated maps, ammunition that wasn't supposed to exist. She also brought perspective. "You're rusty," Rhea said, watching Kira run through pre-flight checks. "It's been 3 years since you flew." "I've been training. In simulators, not the same." Kira's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. Rhea was right. She had spent months in a private facility outside Berlin, flying every simulation scenario she could access, but muscle memory degraded, reflexes slowed. The margin for error in combat was measured in milliseconds. "Then we test it," Kira said. "Tonight." Rhea raised an eyebrow. "You want to take that thing up here? You'll have every radar station from here to Kabul lighting up." "Not if we stay low, not if we're fast." Kira was already climbing into the cockpit. "I need to know if I can still do this." Rhea studied her for a moment, then sighed. "You always were stubborn as hell." She climbed into the gunner's seat, settling in with practiced ease. "But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. I'm not dying because you forgot how to read an altimeter." Kira smiled for the first time in days. "Wraith 1 to Phantom 2, pre-flight check." "Phantom 2, Roger. Let's see if you remember how to fly." The Apache's engines coughed to life, turbines whining as they spooled up. The rotor blades began to turn, slowly at first, then faster, until the entire machine vibrated with contained power. Kira's hands moved across the controls with the automatic precision of 10,000 hours of training. Her breathing slowed, her focus narrowed. This was home. The sky, the machine, the mission. They lifted off at 200 hours, the Apache rising through the rain like a predator emerging from deep water. Kira kept the nose down, hugging the terrain, using the storm as cover. The night vision display painted the world in shades of green and black, every rock and depression rendered in sharp detail. "Terrain following radar engaged." Rhea's voice came through the intercom, calm and professional. "We're at 80 feet. Copy. Adjusting course to 270. Kira's hands were light on the controls, feeling the Apache respond to her slightest input. The machine was old, but it flew like a dream. Every system checked out. Every response was clean. "You haven't lost it," Rhea said after 10 minutes of silent flying. "Not completely, anyway." "High praise," Kira replied dryly. "Don't let it go to your head." They flew a 20-mile circuit, staying below radar coverage, testing every system. The targeting computer locked onto simulated targets with perfect accuracy. The weapons systems responded without hesitation. The Apache handled like Kira remembered, responsive and deadly. "All right," Rhea said as they banked back toward the hangar. "I'm convinced. You can still fly. Now convince me you can fight." Kira didn't answer immediately. She brought the Apache around in a tight turn, dropping even lower, skimming the desert floor at 60 feet. Then she spoke, her voice carrying a weight that made Ria's chest tight. I've been fighting my whole life, Ria, for respect, for recognition, for the right to be in that cockpit. I'm not fighting anymore, I'm finishing it. They landed in silence. The rain had stopped, leaving the desert night clean and cold. As Kira shut down the engines, Ria sat in the gunner's seat, staring at the back of the younger woman's helmet. You know this won't bring him back, she said quietly. I know. And you know it won't change what happened. I know that too. Kira pulled off her helmet and Ria saw her reflection in the cockpit glass, saw the tears she refused to shed. But maybe it'll mean something. The next morning, Staff Sergeant Voss couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had seen the Apache take off, a dark shadow against the storm, and watched it return an hour later. No flight plan had been filed, no radio chatter, no official record of the sortie existed. It was as if the flight had never happened. He found Ria in the armory checking inventory. I need to know what's going on, he said without preamble. No, you don't. Someone's flying unauthorized missions out of a decommissioned hangar. That's my business. Ria set down her clipboard and fixed him with a stare that had made grown men reconsider their life choices. What you need to do, Sergeant, is trust that some things are above your pay grade, and mine, and probably the base commander's. That's not good enough. It's going to have to be. But Voss was not a man who accepted non-answers easily. That afternoon, he pulled records. Hangar 7 had been assigned to the 87th Aviation Regiment, Apache Squadron, until its decommissioning. The squadron's most decorated pilot had been Lieutenant Kira Renaud, call sign Wraith. Killed in action, 2021. Except now someone was flying her bird. Someone who moved like a ghost and flew like the dead had taught them. He dug deeper, accessing files he probably shouldn't have, and found something that made his blood run cold. A crash investigation into Renaud's death had been sealed by order of the Department of Defense. Not classified. Sealed. There was a difference. Classified meant sensitive. Sealed meant buried. He was still staring at his screen when someone cleared their throat behind him. He turned to find Kira Renaud standing in the doorway of the communications room, very much alive. You should stop digging, she said calmly. Voss's hand moved toward his sidearm, instinct overriding reason. Kira didn't move. I'm not a threat to you, Sergeant, but the people I'm going after, they'll kill you just for asking questions. Voss's hand hovered over his weapon for 3 heartbeats before reason reasserted itself. Kira Renaud stood in the doorway with the stillness of someone who had been shot at enough times to know when violence was coming. This wasn't it. You're dead, he said, his voice hoarse. I read the report. You read what they wanted you to read. Kira stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. In the harsh fluorescent light, Voss could see the scars. One ran from her left temple into her hairline. Another traced her jawline. These were not the marks of a clean death. The crash was real, she continued. But I survived it. The army didn't know what to do with that, so they made a choice. Keep me buried, cleaner that way. Why? Because I saw something I shouldn't have, because my co-pilot died for it, because the truth was more dangerous than a lie. She pulled out a chair and sat, the motion casual but calculated. You have a choice now, Sergeant. Walk away, forget you saw me, live your life. Or listen to what I have to say and accept that your life just got complicated. Voss should have walked away. Every survival instinct screamed at him to do exactly that. Instead, he sat down across from her. I'm listening. Kira told him everything. The mission over the Hindu Kush. The weapons cache hidden in a valley that officially didn't exist. The coordinates that matched no known supply route. The radio chatter they had intercepted. Voices speaking English and Pashto, discussing delivery schedules and payment terms. And then the missile. Not an RPG from the ground. A surface-to-air missile, military grade, fired from a position that suggested coordination and intelligence. We were shot down by our own side, Kira said, her voice devoid of emotion. Not officially, but someone with access to American weapons and American intelligence decided we were a problem. Marcus died on impact. I should have too, but I was thrown clear when we hit, and I spent 4 days crawling through those mountains before a shepherd found me. And the army? Voss asked. The army believed what they were told. Engine failure, mechanical malfunction, bad luck. Kira's eyes were hard. The investigation was handled by people who knew exactly what they were covering up. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses were reassigned. The truth was buried so deep that even looking for it became dangerous. Voss felt sick. So you came back to do what? Get revenge? Justice, Kira corrected. There's a difference. Over the next 2 days, Voss found himself drawn deeper into Kira's world. She showed him the evidence she had compiled. Satellite photos showing convoy movements that didn't match official logs. Bank records tracing payments through shell companies. Testimony from Afghan sources who had been paid to stay silent. The scope of it was staggering. "This goes higher than I thought," Voss said, staring at a photograph of a man in a colonel's uniform shaking hands with a known arms dealer. "It always does," Rhea said from the doorway. She had appeared silently, a skill that still unnerved Voss. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "Me?" Voss looked between the two women. "I'm just a staff sergeant. I don't have the authority to—" "You have eyes," Kira interrupted. "You have a conscience, that's more than most. And you have a choice," Rhea added. "Help us finish this or watch us try alone." Voss thought about his career, his family, the pension he had been counting on. Then he thought about Lieutenant Marcus Hale, whose name was on the same memorial wall as Kira's. A man who had died not for his country but to protect someone's profit margin. "What do you need?" he asked. Kira smiled, and for the first time Voss saw the woman she must have been before the crash. Fierce, uncompromising, alive. "Information. The convoy we're targeting will be moving through the Korangal Valley in 72 hours. I need to know its exact route, its security detail, and when it will be most vulnerable. That's classified intelligence." "I know, can you get it?" Voss was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yeah, I can get it." Rhea crossed her arms, studying him. "You understand what you're signing up for. This isn't a sanctioned operation. If it goes wrong, we're all traitors." "If it goes right," Voss replied, "maybe we're heroes. Either way, I'm in." Kira extended her hand. Voss took it. The handshake was firm, binding, a contract written in trust and desperation. "Welcome to the Ghost Crew," Kira said. The intelligence came through 36 hours later. Voss had pulled every favor he had, accessed systems he wasn't supposed to touch, and lied to 3 different officers to get what Kira needed. The convoy would be moving through the valley at dawn on Thursday, carrying weapons and cash to a distribution point near the Pakistan border. Security would be light, just 4 vehicles and a dozen contractors. They were relying on secrecy, not strength. "Is it?" Kira said, spreading the maps across the hood of a jeep parked inside Hangar 7. "We hit them here in the Narrows where they can't maneuver. Fast and hard. Get the evidence and get out before anyone can respond." "What evidence are we looking for?" Voss asked. "Documents, digital storage, anything that proves the chain of command. Names, dates, transactions." Kira's finger traced the route. "These people have been careful, but they can't hide everything. Not if we grab the right vehicle." Rhea leaned over the map, her expression thoughtful. "Air support?" "None. We're on our own. Ground extraction. I'll have a contact waiting at the border. Ex-agency, someone who owes me, but we have to get there first." Voss felt his stomach tighten. This was beyond anything he had trained for. He was a logistics specialist, not a door kicker, but he had made his choice. "What's my role?" "Communications," Kira said. "You'll be here monitoring frequencies, running interference if anything goes sideways. If we need you to pull us out digitally, you do it. If we don't make it back, you take everything we've gathered and you find someone with the power and integrity to do something about it. And if I can't find anyone like that," Kira met his eyes, "then you make sure the world knows anyway. Leak it. Burn it all down. Do whatever it takes." They spent the rest of the day preparing. Kira and Rhea ran through weapons checks, loaded ammunition, planned contingencies. Voss set up a mobile communication station, encrypting channels and establishing secure backups. The tension in Hangar 7 was palpable, a physical presence that seemed to compress the air itself. That night, as they took a brief break, Rhea found Kira standing outside, staring up at the stars. The older woman approached slowly, giving her space. "Second thoughts?" Rhea asked quietly. "None." "Liar." Kira smiled just a little. "Maybe a few, but not about this. This needs to happen. Marcus would be proud of you." The words hit harder than Rhea intended. Kira's composure cracked just for a moment before she rebuilt it with visible effort. "Marcus should be here," she said softly. "He should be flying that Apache, raising hell, living his life. Instead, you're doing it for him. Someone has to." The Apache lifted off at 4:45 hours on Thursday morning. The sky was still dark, stars fading as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern horizon. Kira flew with the confidence of someone who had made peace with her choices. Rhea sat in the gunner's seat, scanning the terrain below through the targeting system. "Wraith 1 to base, we are airborne and proceeding to target area." Voss's voice crackled in their headsets. "Copy, Wraith 1. I have you on scope. All frequencies clear. No indication of enemy activity." "Roger. Maintain radio silence unless critical." Kira pushed the Apache low, using the terrain to mask their approach. The Korangal Valley was a maze of ridges and ravines, a place where helicopters had been dying for decades. She knew these mountains, had flown them dozens of times before the crash. Every peak was a memory, every valley a ghost. "Target area in 15 minutes, Rhea reported. "Convoy should be entering the kill zone in 20. Perfect timing." Kira adjusted their approach vector, bringing them in from the south where the morning sun would be at their backs. An old hunter's trick. Make your enemy blind while you see everything. They crossed the valley rim at 80 knots, dropping into the shadows like a stone. Below, the convoy was exactly where intelligence said it would be. 4 vehicles, moving in tight formation, kicking up dust as they navigated the rough trail. Kira felt her heartbeat slow, her breathing deepen. This was the moment. Everything she had suffered, everything she had sacrificed came down to the next 10 minutes. "Weapons hot," Rhea said calmly, "targeting lead vehicle. Stand by." Kira brought the Apache into a hover positioned perfectly above the convoy. They were exposed now, silhouetted against the lightning sky, but surprise was their advantage. "All vehicles, this is Wraith. You are ordered to stop and surrender. This is your only warning." The convoy's response was immediate. Gunfire erupted from the vehicles, small arms tracers arcing up toward the Apache. Kira banked hard, evading easily. These men were contractors, not soldiers. Their discipline was poor, their training adequate at best. "Wraith to base, we are engaged, taking fire." "Copy, Wraith. No change in enemy communications. You're still clear." Kira brought the Apache around, giving Rhea a clean shot at the lead vehicle. The gunner's voice was steady. "Engaging now." The 30mm chain gun roared, sending a burst into the ground ahead of the convoy. Dust and rock exploded, creating a wall that forced the vehicles to stop. It was a warning shot, precise and controlled. The message was clear: surrender or die. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the doors of the vehicles opened and men began climbing out, hands raised. The detention was surgical. Rhea descended from the Apache while Kira maintained overwatch, the chain gun tracking the contractors with mechanical precision. 6 men, all armed, all wearing the unmarked fatigues of private military contractors. Rhea moved among them with the efficiency of someone who had done this 100 times, securing weapons, checking for hidden devices. "Wraith 2 to 1, we have compliance. Beginning search of vehicles." "Copy. Be advised you have approximately 12 minutes before sunrise makes us visible to anything with eyes." Rhea worked quickly, checking the vehicles systematically. The first 3 yielded nothing but weapons and supplies, but the fourth, a modified SUV with reinforced panels, was different. She found the case under a false floor secured with a biometric lock. "Wraith 1, I have something. Locked case, probably our target. Can you open it? Give me a minute." Rhea pulled a small device from her pack, a military-grade biometric bypass that she wasn't supposed to have. It took 45 seconds to crack the lock. Inside the case were 3 hard drives, 2 laptops, and a stack of documents secured in waterproof sleeves. "Jackpot," Rhea breathed. "We've got data storage and paper trails. This is it." "Copy. Extract immediately. We're out of time." But as Rhea moved to secure the case, one of the contractors spoke. His accent was American, Midwestern. "You don't know what you're doing. Those people will kill you. They'll kill everyone you know." Rhea paused, looking at him. "They already tried, didn't take. The woman in that helicopter, she's supposed to be dead. She got better." Rhea secured the case and moved back toward the Apache. Behind her, the contractors remained on their knees, hands behind their heads. She had taken their radios, but in minutes they would find a way to communicate. The The clock was ticking. Climbed into the gunner's seat, securing the case. Wraith 2 aboard, we are clear to extract. Kira didn't need to be told twice. The Apache lifted off, climbing rapidly, gaining altitude and speed. Behind them, the contractors scrambled for their vehicles, but they were too late. The Apache was already gone, vanishing into the growing light like the ghost it was named for. Wraith to base, mission successful. We have the package, heading to extraction point. Voss's voice carried audible relief. Copy, Wraith. Excellent work. Be advised, I'm picking up increased radio traffic. Someone knows something happened. Expected. Will be dark until we reach the border. Wraith out. Kira flew low and fast, using every trick she knew to avoid detection. The mountains blurred beneath them, rocky peaks and green valleys passing in a stream of color. She felt alive in a way she hadn't since before the crash. This was what she was built for. This was purpose. They crossed into Pakistani airspace 40 minutes later, flying so low that Kira could see individual trees. No radar painted them. No interceptors scrambled. They were beneath the threshold, invisible to systems designed to catch high-altitude threats. The extraction point was a plateau near the border, barely large enough for the Apache to land. A single vehicle waited there, a nondescript Land Cruiser with tinted windows. As they touched down, a man emerged. He was in his 50s, gray-haired and compact, moving with the careful economy of someone who had survived by being careful. Kira Renaud, he said as she climbed down. I thought you were dead. I was, it didn't stick. Kira handed him the case. This needs to get to someone who can use it, someone clean. The man opened the case, examining the contents briefly. His expression darkened. This is bigger than I thought, these names, Jesus. Can you get it to the right people? I can try. You need to understand the people implicated here have reach. They'll come after you. Let them. Kira's voice was flat. I've been dead for 3 years. I'm not afraid of dying again. The man studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, give me 48 hours. If this is as damning as it looks, people will start falling within a week. That's all I ask. The man returned to his vehicle, the case secured in his trunk. He paused before getting in. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about Marcus. He was a good man. Yes, Kira said quietly. He was. The Land Cruiser drove away, disappearing down a mountain road. Kira stood watching until it was out of sight, then turned back to the Apache. Rhea was running post-flight checks, her movements automatic. Now what? Rhea asked without looking up. Now we wait, see if any of this matters. And if it doesn't, Kira was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled, sharp and dangerous. Then we go louder. They lifted off again, heading back toward Afghanistan. The sun was fully up now, painting the mountains in shades of gold and amber. It was beautiful, Kira thought. The kind of morning that made you believe in second chances. The fallout began 36 hours later. Voss was monitoring news feeds when the first story broke. An investigative journalist known for his work on military corruption published an exposé that sent shockwaves through the Defense Department. Names, dates, bank accounts. Everything Kira had gathered, everything the case contained, laid out in meticulous detail. Within hours, 3 senior officers were placed under investigation. By the end of the day, 2 contractors had been arrested. The story dominated every news cycle, impossible to ignore or suppress. They're trying to spin it, Voss told Kira when she returned to Hangar 7, calling it an isolated incident, a few bad apples. It always starts that way, Kira replied, but the truth has momentum now. It'll keep going. And it did. Over the next week, more evidence emerged. Whistleblowers came forward, protected by the initial revelations. Former soldiers who had seen things they couldn't explain. Intelligence analysts who had been told to look the other way. The investigation expanded, reaching into corners of the military-industrial complex that had operated with impunity for years. Kira watched it unfold from the shadows, a ghost observing the consequences of her resurrection. She felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a profound sense of completion. Marcus's name was in the news now, his death being re-examined. The official story of mechanical failure was being challenged. People were asking questions that should have been asked 3 years ago. Does it help? Rhea asked one evening, sitting beside Kira on the hood of a jeep watching the sunset. Seeing them fall? No, Kira admitted, but it's better than the alternative, which is letting them get away with it. They sat in silence, two soldiers who had seen too much and done too much finding a moment of peace. Then Voss approached, carrying a tablet. "You need to see this." The screen showed a press conference. A brigadier general standing at a podium announcing a full review of aviation safety procedures. He mentioned Kira's name, mentioned Marcus's name, called them heroes who had uncovered corruption at great personal cost. "They're trying to claim credit," Voss said, disgusted. "Of course they are," Kira replied calmly. "That's how institutions survive. They absorb the scandal, make it part of their narrative, and move on. Doesn't that piss you off?" "Not anymore." Kira took the tablet, reading the statement. "Let them have their narrative. I have something better." "What's that?" "The truth." The investigation continued for months, expanding far beyond its initial scope. What had begun as a targeted expose of weapons trafficking became a comprehensive examination of military oversight and accountability. Congressional hearings were held, reforms were proposed. The entire system was forced to look at itself and acknowledge what it had become. Kira watched from the margins, no longer a participant. She had set things in motion, but now they moved under their own power. She returned to Hangar 7 one last time, 3 months after the operation. The Apache sat where she had left it, covered with a tarp gathering dust. She pulled the covering back, running her hand along the fuselage one more time. "Saying goodbye," Rhea appeared in the doorway, backlit by afternoon sun. "Something like that." Kira stepped back, looking at the machine that had been her weapon and her redemption. "It's done. Whatever happens now, I did what I came to do. So what's next?" "You can't stay dead forever," Kira smiled. "Can't I? The army would take you back. With everything that's happened, they'd have to. You could fly again, officially." "I don't want to fly for them," Kira's voice was certain. "I don't want to be part of a system that needed to be burned down before it would do the right thing." "Fair enough. So what do you want?" Kira thought about it. For 3 years she had lived for one purpose: justice for Marcus, accountability for his death. That purpose had consumed her, defined her, given her a reason to claw her way back from the grave. Now, with that purpose fulfilled, she found herself facing a question she hadn't considered. Who was Kira Renaud without vengeance driving her? "I don't know yet," she admitted, "but I'll figure it out." Rhea nodded, understanding. "When you do, let me know. I might be interested." "You're retiring." "Thinking about it. I've got 25 years in. Maybe it's time to find out who I am without the uniform." They stood together in the hangar, two women who had fought their own wars and survived. Outside, the desert stretched endless and indifferent. But in that moment, in that space, they were not alone. 6 months later, Kira stood at Arlington National Cemetery looking at a wall of names. Marcus Hale's name was there, etched in stone. But now, thanks to the investigation, there was a new plaque beside it, a recognition of the truth. Not a hero killed by mechanical failure, but a soldier who had died exposing corruption. It was a small change, barely noticeable to most visitors, but to Kira it meant everything. "Hey, Marcus," she said quietly, though there was no one else around to hear. "We got them, not all of them, but enough. You didn't die for nothing." The wind picked up, rustling the leaves of nearby trees. Kira stood there for a long time, letting herself feel everything she had suppressed for 3 years: grief, anger, relief, finally acceptance. When she turned to leave, she found Voss waiting by the path. He had been promoted to warrant officer, his role in the operation quietly acknowledged by people who understood what he had risked. "Thought I might find you here," he said. "I'm predictable. You're persistent. There's a difference." They walked together through the cemetery, past rows of white stones marking lives given in service. "The last of them went down yesterday," Voss said. "A colonel who had been coordinating the whole operation, 20 years in Leavenworth." "Good." Kira's voice carried no emotion. "What about you?" Voss asked. "What are you going to do now?" "I'm thinking about teaching, flight instruction. There are programs for veterans, kids who want to fly but can't afford the training. That's a hell of a career change." "Maybe, but I've spent enough time fighting. Maybe it's time to build something instead." Voss nodded. Rhea said something similar. She's opening a private security consultancy, training women in high-risk environments. Sounds like her. They reached the cemetery entrance. Voss extended his hand. "For what it's worth, it was an honor serving with you, even if it was unofficial." Kira